people, to gain its trust from the people, and that's the basic seeds of democracy, and that's what we've been aspiring to. And I think people today feel empowered. People feel opinionated. They feel that if something is not going their way, they can make their voice heard. And this is not a Saddam-era Iraq, and people know that. And people know that they have to hold up higher levels of governance, otherwise they'll be voted out of office the next time around, and that's progress.
Iman Ball with IREX, Zorspas, Qubad. I'm assuming that what's true for that entire region, the Middle East, is probably also the case for the KRG in terms of young people and the problems that the whole Middle East is going to face in providing jobs for young people. I haven't really heard you touch upon that, and I was wondering if you could maybe just talk about how to introduce governance, the idea of like young people running for parties or even working with civil society to kind of in a way hold the government responsible for types of services that are delivered for them, education, and et cetera, et cetera. So, thank you.
Thank you. And you know, it's fascinating because we were always worried going into these elections what kind of turnout we would get. And we've looked at elections around the world where people have been so-called dissatisfied with their governments, and you've seen turnouts sometimes as low as 20%. But to get somewhere near 80% shows that people still have hope that their participation in the process can actually bring about better governance. What was really encouraging was how the youth got involved in these elections, how they got involved in the campaigning, how they used sophisticated technology, Facebook, Twitter. If you see some of the campaign rallies that were going on using Facebook and Twitter, it was actually fantastic. We had some of the people actually running for office using Twitter and Facebook as a way of effectively delivering messages to their constituencies in country and also in the diaspora. The youth were a very vocal voice. They energized the campaign, and it was the first time again. In past elections in Kurdistan, it's always been about the revolution. It's been about the struggle. It's been about the role of the brave Peshmerga. It's been about what we did to liberate Kurdistan, what we did to fight off terrorism. This time, the campaign had a different tone to it. It had to do with, what are you going to do for me now? What is this government going to do? How are you going to do it? And the youth want to know. The youth want to know what kind of activities are they going to have? How can they get access to housing? How can a mortgage system be put in place that gives young people an opportunity to own their own homes? These are the kinds of questions that were being posed to our leaders. And we know that the youth today did not suffer the way that the older generation did at the hands of dictatorship. They did not have to live through the genocide. They may not have seen as rough a time as some of the older generation. So they are actually expecting more from the government than, let's say, some of the older generation, who are quite happy with what they have, quite content with the level of freedom and democracy that exists. But the youth want more. They're not happy. They're comparing Kurdistan with America. They're saying, but in America you can do this. Why can't we do this in Kurdistan? And it's good because it keeps our foot to the fire. It keeps us motivated. It keeps us passionate. It keeps us wanting to progress. And I think the youth have been fantastic. And even in the candidates, where we're going to see some young members of parliament in all lists, male and female. The universities are blossoming in Kurdistan, creating quite an opinionated bunch of students and recent graduates, and that's good. It's healthy for our society, but it's also a warning to us that as the government, we need to make sure that there are jobs for these youth when they graduate from universities, when they go out into the private sector, that there is actually a place for them to go to, so they don't lose hope, so they stay focused, so they stay committed, and I'm cautiously optimistic that we are on the right path there.
Good afternoon. My name is Salar from the World Bank, but I'm absolutely not speaking on behalf of the World Bank. I'm a very proud young Kurd sitting here and glad to hear all these great journeys that we're on towards this destination. But playing the devil's advocate, it's fantastic to have PwC giving us a report on how to implement this stuff on governance, on anti-corruption. most Middle Eastern states have received PwC's help in this, but will we have some form of internal or external monitors independent of the state that will monitor the implementation of this report, or will it stay with this beautiful window dressing, which I'm afraid of?
Sure. Well, I'm equally proud to see a Kurd in the World Bank, so congratulations. This is not a public relations stunt. This is a genuine effort on the part of the government to improve its services, to improve the way that it delivers its services, to improve issues of transparency. We know that we cannot attract the kind of investment that we want to attract in Kurdistan if we are considered corrupt. We are focusing on developing Kurdistan. We know that we cannot rely solely on our own resources to develop the region. We're trying to attract international investment. We're trying to develop relations with the international private sectors. And to have a transparent system is going to be the biggest attraction to international private sectors. We are, and President Barzani stated this quite frequently in his campaign speech, that we will establish a public integrity office that will hold everybody accountable. Many people campaigning were stressing the need for government officials and high-level officials to announce and publicize their assets, their income, their properties, their vehicles, and that is something that will be pushed for, and I'm confident that we will attain. But more importantly than again, this is not just about highlighting that one corrupt official. This is about creating a fundamental change in how we do things, how we govern, how we practice, how we procure, how we execute, how we do budget allocations. These are all, some of it is very technical, and we really do. I know you're not representing the World Bank, but we really would like the World Bank's assistance on some of these things. These are not things that we can do entirely alone. These are things that we're going to need help with. These are things that we're going to need international expertise to help us execute some of these ideas. But it's something that we're committed to do. We're committed to do it not because the West tells us we must do it, not because the US government says that if you don't do this, you're not going to get my aid. This is something we want to do because, one, we have to be accountable to our people. Two, in order to maximize the use of our, what we're expecting to be a very large windfall from the oil and gas that we have found in our region, we have to be able to exercise and use those revenues effectively, transparently, and in accordance with the best international practices. And we're excited to take up this challenge. And it's not just window dressing, I assure you.
Thank you, Wendy Chamberlain from the Middle East Institute. Actually, I had a very similar question to the young Kurdish man from the World Bank, so let me just build on it a little bit. Having been much older and having actually run some institutions myself, I know that it's a lot harder when you actually get down to it, to the management, than it seems at first. I think you have. I'm extremely impressed with your presentation and with your ideas and ideals. But what do you see as the obstacles, the practical obstacles in implementing your ideas and your ideals? And specifically, one of the obstacles that has bedeviled so many young governments as they start out is the depth in the bureaucracy of its staff and personnel in the implementation of your programs. Could you speak to the depth of expertise?
We have our Minister of Finance always tells this very passionate story about how complicated it is for him to buy an ashtray for his ministry. And he gets very animated when he tells, and he happens to have an ashtray on hand when he tells us. And he tells us that it takes 12 steps for the minister to purchase an ashtray for his ministry. It's got to go through 12 different layers of bureaucracy for that to actually happen. And you can imagine when you're talking about a multi-million-dollar project, the complications that can come around from that. So by eliminating some of the bureaucracy is going to be key, because at every step you can allow for corruption to